tonight we're going to read y'all a book called Goodnight Moon. And then afterwards, we're going to do a language activity of sorting what's in the story and what's not in the story. So listen carefully so you can know what's in the story and what items are not in the story. Are y'all ready? Yeah. All right. The book is called Goodnight Moon. In the great green room, there was a telephone, a red balloon, and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting on a chair. And 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens and a little toy house and a young mouse. Y'all listening? And a comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush and a quiet old lady who was whispering, hush. Goodnight room. Goodnight moon. Goodnight cow jumping over the moon. Goodnight light and the red balloon. Goodnight bears and goodnight chairs. Goodnight kittens and goodnight mittens. Goodnight clocks and goodnight socks. Goodnight little house and goodnight mouse. Goodnight comb and goodnight brush. Goodnight nobody and goodnight mush. And good night to the old lady whispering, hush. Good night stars and good night air. Good night noises everywhere. All right, now let's see if you were listening. All right, kids, I want y'all to stand up. And we're going to look at all these objects over here. All right, if it's in the story, you're going to put it in the green room. This is the green room in the story, in the green room. If it's not in the story, we're going to put it in the red room because there was not a red room in the story, right? There was a green room. So if it's not in the story, we're going to put it in the red room. All right, Mason, what about the dinosaur? Was the dinosaur in the story or not in the story? Not in the story, okay? All right, Ella, the red balloon. Was the red balloon in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
Okay. Alan, a pair of socks. Were the pair of socks in the story or not in the story? In the story. There you go. All right, let's see. A cow.
Yes.
Was the cow in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
Okay, all right. Ella, was a clock in the story or not in the story?
Not in the story. Wait, yes, in the story.
Yes, in the story. Good job. All right, Alan, the old lady whispering, hush. Was she in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
Okay. A little mouse.
Yes.
Was the mouse not in the story or in the story? Uh-oh. Well, where was the mouse?
She was in the story.
In the story, all right?
She's gonna lay on the sock.
Good job. All right, Ella, 2 kittens. Were they in the story or not in the story?
In the story. Hey, kitty.
All right, Alan, a bowl full of mush. Was the bowl full of mush in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
All right, Mason, a car. Was a car in the story or not in the story? Not in the story. What about a stocking at Christmas time?
No.
Ella, was it in the story or not in the story? Not in the story, okay. Alan, what about some milk? Was the milk in the story or not in the story? Not in the story. All right, Mason, what about some stars? We have some stars here. It's kind of hard to see. Were stars in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
Okay, good job.
What's the one on my head?
No, you can put it in the story.
You can put it
Okay. Ella, was a comb and a brush in the story or not in the story?
in the story.
Okay. Alan, was a telephone. Here's our little telephone. Was it in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
In the story. All right, Mason, we have 3 bears. Let's show everybody. We have 3 bears sitting in chairs. Were the 3 bears in the story or not in the story? In the story. Perfect. Thank you. All right, Ella, we have a pair of mittens. Were the pair of mittens in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
In the story. Okay. We have a picture of a cow jumping over the moon. Alan, was the picture of a cow jumping over the moon in the story or not in the story?
In the story.
Mason, we have a puppy dog. Was the puppy dog in the story or not in the story? Where was it? Not in the story. Ella, we have a swing set. Children playing on a swing set. Was that in the story or not in the story?
Not in the story.
Okay. Alan, we have a toy house. This is our toy house. Was a toy house in the story or not in the story? In the story. All right, last one, Mason. We have a picture of a moon. Was the moon in the story or not in the story? In the story.
Look, I put it in the mush.
And he put it in the mush, the bowl of mush. Okay, well, we're going to say good night. Can y'all tell everyone good night?
Good night.
Good night.